When will feminists care about sexism against men? When the real victims are actually women.
Even with my Gamergate video, I got a lot of anti-feminists attacking me, even though Gamergate is about ethics and gaming journalism and not anti-feminism. I got a lot of that shit.
You know, this is really funny, because when I tried to find your Gamergate video to see what it was all about, I couldn't find it. And in fact, all I found was a link from a WordPress blog with your name on it to a video that's now private.
There are some people who have devoted entire blogs into criticizing and attacking feminism, and it's really interesting because you can tell that these people have, never spoken to a feminist.
And that's just fucking hilarious, because you don't see the blatant hypocrisy in this. You made a video about Gamergate saying some really stupid shit without talking to anyone in Gamergate, and the moment they try to talk to you, you make the video private. You lack the sense of self-awareness to see how you refusing to talk to Gamergate while giving criticism to it is in any way similar to you demanding people talk to feminists when criticizing feminism.
So the other day I discovered that there's this tag called Menemist Twitter, and what it does is it seeks to parody feminism to show just how bizarre and crazy feminism is. Why don't guys under 6 foot get a chance? Why can't she open the door for me? Why do men have to spend their hard-earned money on dates? Feminism is already fighting against these things.
You just spent 30 seconds ridiculing these tweets. How do you expect anyone with more than a male feminist self-respect to believe you? And more importantly, when have feminists ever complained or campaigned in any fashion against a social bias against men or for women? The answer is never.
When I was younger, mostly in my teens and 20s, I had strange ideas about feminists as hairy, angry, man-hating, sex-hating women, as if those are bad things.
Case in point. The only reason feminists care about the draft is because it perpetuates the idea that women are not as capable as men. Men being forced against their wills to die in a horrendous, meaningless bloodshed? No. The real victims are women.
I firmly believe in man work, which is anything I don't want to do.
See, there's a reason why men are expected to open doors for women and pay for meals on dates, and that's because women are viewed as the fairer sex.
Case and point. The only reason feminists care about men having to pay for dates is because it perpetuates the idea that women are not as capable as men. Men being forced by society to act as a disposable utility for women? The real victims are women.
And because women are viewed as the fairer sex, they're also viewed as being less competent. Because they aren't considered to be as competent as men, there's this entire situation set up to where men are more likely to be employed than women.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
Women are given an incredible amount of institutional advantage over men, particularly in STEM fields where they're preferred over men 2-to-1. Women have also been the majority of college students since the mid-70s, and women in their 20s out-earn men in their 20s when you look at men and women of similar fields. And isn't it interesting that when you look at the so-called wage gap from this perspective, it only actually comes into play when women hit their 30s, the same time women are having children and are cutting back their time and investment into work. It's almost like feminists aren't complaining about a wage gap or patriarchy, but the fact that their actions have consequences.
Symbolic of his struggle against reality.
Feminism is not about men paying for our meals and opening our doors.
I firmly believe in man work, which is anything I don't want to do.
It's about being able to decide that we want to open up our own doors, have our own jobs, and have our own money. And maybe one day we can take you out and get you that free meal. Oh, but fragile masculinity. See,
Men are expected by both men and women to perform benevolent sexism towards women, or else they're seen as sexist. And this dumb sexist feminazi has the gall to say that a society where men and women both pressure men to act like a woman's foot servant is only due to male ego and not also to female entitlement. And somehow, you seem surprised that people are anti-feminist.
another thing I've seen are these parody images of these body positivity memes that have been going around that are geared towards women of size. This one says, "This is sexy, this is not. Real men have curves." I don't believe in throwing skinny women under the bus and calling, curvy girls real women and thin women not real women. These memes exist because women from a very young age are taught that their body is their worth. They're taught that the prettier you are, the more likely you are to be successful.
Take a closer look at that meme.
For the sake of argument, let's accept that women find social value or social capital through their bodies, through being beautiful and healthy, and probably by extension through having children. The other side of the coin is that men don't have any inherent value in this way, which makes men disposable if they can't find value through their utility. This is why women and children first is a thing. This is why everyone got up in arms about the tragedy of 200 girls being kidnapped by Boko Haram, despite the fact that men and boys have been slaughtered by Boko Haram for years, sometimes even being burned alive.
The gender empathy gap. This is the striking and disturbing indifference of our culture toward the suffering of men and boys, in stark contrast to our evident concern for the suffering of girls and women. For example, when a large number of men are killed, the media report on people killed. The sex of the victims becomes invisible. When women or girls are killed, in contrast, they are rarely, if ever, referred to as people.
Is the intervention of the US in the search for the abducted Nigerian girls likely to inflame the situation and provoke Boko Haram to more violence?
I'll be quite frank about this. I think if these had been 200 young men, we would have seen far more attention paid, and the Nigerian government would have got on its backside and done something much more effective.
Boys are routinely captured by Boko Haram to be used as child soldiers, abused and enslaved, and there's no similar outcry. What's more, boys and men are routinely slaughtered by Boko Haram, and it's barely news.
So memes like this fill a void in the media. They tell women of size that they are gorgeous, and essentially tell skinny women what they're being told for their entire lives, that they aren't real women.
Despite the fact that men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of women, Kat Black thinks that there is a desperate need to help women with their self-esteem issues. Despite the fact that men are seen as disposable and valued only through utility, she feels that women's values as objects of beauty is more harmful to women. To her, a woman's ego is more important than a man's life.
That all being said, while I understand that this is a parody meme, I think that it's also important to acknowledge the fact that men do struggle with body issues. Issues that, by the way, body-positive feminists are already addressing. The difference is that very rarely are men made to feel that their value as a human being is directly impacted by their size. There's a reason why when men talk about their size, they usually talk about getting a date, and when women talk about their size, they discuss being respected as human beings.
While criticizing this meme, Kat Black shows a distinct lack of self-awareness, because this meme is showcasing exactly what I said before. Men are required by society to perform a utility. Men are required to be providers. Men are required to be employed. Men are required to be useful. And if they can't perform that utility, if they can't be useful, then they're disposable, which is why the majority of homeless people are men. Women, however, are only required to be beautiful, healthy, and able to produce children. That is an inherent value that women have always had that has made their lives more valuable than men. But again, women's egos. Women's sense of self is more important to feminists than the lives of men.
So out of all of the things that I saw looking through the Meninist hashtag that pissed me off, this was probably the one that really got under my skin. A rape prevention poster that says, "Just because you made him ejaculate doesn't mean that he wanted it. Circumcluding his penis without asking for consent equals sexual assault. Don't be that girl." What a lot of anti-feminists seem to think is that feminists do not think that men can get raped, and they also don't care about male rape survivors.
Well, maybe that's because feminists in positions of power have done exactly this. Feminist Mary Koss influenced the CDC to make exactly this caveat. As he describes in a paper on his research methods, although consideration of male victims is within the scope of legal statutes, it is important to restrict the term rape to instances where male victims were penetrated by offenders. It is inappropriate to consider as a rape victim a man who engages in unwanted sexual intercourse with a woman.
Men are certainly raped more than women, but men also are far, 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 far more likely to be raped by other men. And I think it's important that when you're making that point that men get raped more than women, you also have to realize that you're pointing the finger back at other men.
Because no conversation about feminism would be complete without pointing fingers at men.
When Megan Mahoney was caught with a male student, a bunch of guys chimed in all over the comment sections on Facebook with things like, "Lucky little bastard," and telling him that he should have kept his mouth shut. And the sad thing is that these guys commenting on this article are the same guys behind this Meninist Twitter. Feminism is called feminism because while yes, it's about the equality of the sexes, it also recognizes that women need the most attention because of how women have historically been oppressed and told to stand behind men. I'm a feminist, and I believe that there are certain men's rights issues that are worth discussing. But almost every one of those issues leads back to misogyny and how society views men and how society views women.
Because even when the topic is sexism against men and male issues, the victim somehow still has to be women. Because feminists don't care about men, and will never see men as a victim because feminism perpetrates the stigma that men are not worthy of empathy. This makes sense. I mean, how else would feminism be able to keep
pointing the finger back at other men? Feminism helps men too,